The conviction. The gavel struck the wood with a force that echoed through the hushed courtroom. Life in prison without the possibility of parole, the judge declared, his voice heavy with finality. A murmur rippled through the crowd as the defendant, a frail yet defiant woman in her late 30s, simply stared ahead. Olivia Hartwell, once a respected journalist, had just been sentenced to die behind bars for a crime she swore she didn't commit. The evidence had been overwhelming. A bloody knife found in her apartment, security footage placing her near the scene, and a shaky eyewitness claiming they saw her fleeing the house of Daniel Mercer, the CEO she had been investigating for corporate fraud. Yet, Olivia maintained her innocence. The trial had been swift, the public opinion brutal. Headlines painted her as a cunning woman who had gotten too close to the truth and eliminated Mercer when he threatened to expose her instead. She had spent the trial watching in disbelief as the prosecution meticulously built their case, brick by brick, until the walls of justice closed in around her. Every piece of evidence seemed airtight, yet Olivia knew it had all been carefully orchestrated. The bloody knife? She had never seen it before in her life. The security footage? It was real, but it had been cut and edited to fit the narrative. And the eyewitness? A man who had never looked her in the eye, stumbling over his words as he testified. Someone had set her up. But why? And who? As the bailiff approached to take her away, Olivia finally turned her head. Her gaze locked onto a single person in the courtroom, Ethan Grayson, her former colleague and the only person who still believed in her. He gave a barely perceptible nod, a silent promise that he wouldn't stop until the truth was uncovered. But Olivia knew that promises meant little when the world had already decided you were guilty. The cold steel of the handcuffs dug into her wrists as she was led away. Flashes from cameras blinded her. Journalists shouting questions she no longer had the energy to answer. The judge's words rang in her ears. Life without parole. It was a death sentence without an execution. She was a lifer now. As she was placed into the transport van, Olivia let out a slow breath, willing herself not to break. There had to be a way to fight back. There had to be a way out. But as the prison gates loomed ahead, a dark realization settled in her gut. She had no idea what awaited her behind those bars. Welcome to Holloway Prison. The ride to Holloway Women's Correctional Facility was long and silent. Olivia stared out the window of the prison transport van, watching the city she once roamed freely disappear in the rearview mirror. It had only been weeks since her conviction, yet it felt like another lifetime. The air was thick with the weight of finality. When the vehicle finally stopped, reality hit hard. The towering prison gates loomed over her, lined with razor wire, a grim reminder of the life she was about to endure. The guards wasted no time stripping her of any remnants of her old life. Her designer blouse was replaced with a dull orange jumpsuit, her shoes taken in exchange for prison-issued slip-ons. Even her name was reduced to an inmate number 47629. She was led through the dimly lit corridors, her senses overwhelmed by the stale air and distant shouts echoing off the concrete walls. Prisoners watched her with a mix of curiosity and menace. To them, she wasn't just another inmate. She was the high-profile murderer who killed a billionaire. The whispers followed her like shadows. She's the reporter who offed that CEO. She looks too soft for this place. Bet she won't last a week. She was assigned to cell 46, a tiny concrete box with a metal bed and a single narrow window too high to see through. Her cellmate, Reina Vasquez, a muscular woman with tattoos crawling up her arms, sized her up the moment she stepped in. "You're the reporter chick, huh?" Reina said, arms crossed. Olivia didn't respond, setting her few belongings on the metal bunk. "You don't last long in here unless you find a way to survive," Reina continued. "You either belong to someone or you make yourself useful." You're fresh meat." Olivia felt the weight of those words. She had spent her life uncovering stories, exposing corruption. Now she was the story, but she refused to be a victim. She needed a plan. That night, Olivia lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The sounds of the prison surrounded her. Distant laughter, murmured conversations, the occasional shout of a guard. She was in a world completely foreign to her, where survival meant more than just knowing the truth. It meant playing the game. Then, something strange happened. A small slip of paper was pushed under her cell door. She hesitated before picking it up. The words were hastily scrawled. "You were framed. Find the book." Her heart pounded. Was this a sick joke? Or was it the first clue in unraveling the truth behind the crime that had stolen her life? She glanced toward the door, but there was no sign of anyone outside. Who left Olivia the note? What book were they referring to? And could this be the key to proving her innocence? Who left Olivia the note? What book are they referring to? And could this be the key to proving her innocence? The Book of Secrets. The next morning, Olivia awoke in the dim, cold light of her cell, the mysterious note still clutched in her trembling hand. Its simple message, "You were framed. Find the book," echoed in her mind as she struggled to shake off the remnants of a fitful sleep. The silence of her cell was broken only by the distant clamor of the prison and the irregular drip of water from a leaky pipe. Determined to understand the significance of the note, she resolved to act before the day's routine swallowed her hope. After a meager breakfast that tasted of cardboard and despair, Olivia knew there was only one place in this forsaken institution where answers might hide among the faded pages of forgotten lore: the prison library. With a measured calm, she approached Officer Daniels, whose stern eyes scrutinized her every word as she requested permission for a library visit. The guard's skepticism was evident, yet without pressing further, she nodded curtly and granted Olivia a few precious moments among the books. Stepping into the library felt like entering a different world. The air was saturated with the scent of aged paper and must, and rows upon rows of worn-out volumes lined the narrow shelves. Despite the facility's drab surroundings, Olivia marveled at how the library, a silent repository of human history, could offer a glimmer of escape from the monotony of prison life. She moved slowly along the aisles, her eyes scanning for any title that might connect with the past that had now become the key to her future. It wasn't long before she encountered a volume that made her heart skip a beat, a battered book with a faded gold lettering on its spine. Mercer's Empire, The Rise and Fall of a Titan. Olivia's breath caught. Daniel Mercer was the name that had haunted her trial, the name that now defined her in the eyes of the world. Although she had always maintained her innocence, the evidence had painted a damning portrait linking her to Mercer's death. Was it possible that this very book held clues to expose the orchestrated conspiracy against her? With hesitant determination, Olivia pulled the heavy book from the shelf. It felt as though the very act of removing it from its place had awakened something dormant in the stale air. She settled into a secluded corner of the library. The book opened before her. At first glance, it appeared to be an innocuous biography, a chronicle of Mercer's meteoric rise in the business world and his subsequent fall from grace. Yet as Olivia turned the fragile pages, she noticed subtle anomalies in the text. Annotations in the margins, underlined passages, and brief scribbled notes that seemed to hint at hidden truths. Engrossed, she began reading about Mercer's involvement in covert business deals, his secret meetings, and a network of powerful individuals who thrived on corruption. Each page unraveled a thread of a larger tapestry, a tapestry that suggested Mercer's empire was built not solely on ambition, but on a foundation of deceit and betrayal. The narrative grew darker with every line, revealing partnerships that extended beyond the realms of legitimate commerce and into the underbelly of organized crime. Then, in the midst of an unassuming chapter detailing Mercer's philanthropic ventures, Olivia discovered something extraordinary. A thin, folded piece of paper, almost lost between the pages, beckoned her attention. Her hands shook as she delicately unfolded the paper, and as she read the hastily inscribed message, a chill ran down her spine. "The truth is buried, but not for long. Trust no one." Olivia's pulse quickened. The note mirrored the tone of the one she had found the night before. Yet this new message was more ominous, hinting at a buried truth and a warning of treachery. Had someone within the prison, or perhaps outside of it, been orchestrating this complex ruse? The realization that there were allies in the shadows, or perhaps enemies masquerading as saviors, left her both wary and desperate for more clarity. Carefully, she tucked the note back into the book, feeling its weight not just on the paper but on her entire being. She closed the book slowly, absorbing every detail that could connect her to the mystery of Mercer's untimely demise. The annotations, the peculiar choice of words, and the secret message all suggested that Mercer's death was not a random act of violence, but rather a calculated move by someone determined to silence the truth. The library's silence was suddenly interrupted by the creak of a door. Olivia's heart raced as she quickly hid the book under a pile of older texts. A fellow inmate, a wiry woman with sharp eyes and a guarded expression, passed by and nodded briefly before disappearing into the maze of shelves. Was this inmate just another prisoner, or could she be an unspoken informant? Olivia could not tell, but the encounter left her with a nagging feeling that everyone in Holloway had secrets of their own. Determined to piece together the fragments of her shattered past, Olivia made her way back to her cell. The journey through the stark corridors of Holloway felt interminable as each step reinforced the grim reality of her existence behind these walls. The whispered rumors of other inmates, the furtive glances, and the ever-present murmur of conversations hinted at an undercurrent of intrigue that pulsed through the prison like a hidden heartbeat. Inside the confines of her cell, Olivia spread out the notes and the book on her small metal bunk. The once simple biography had transformed into a puzzle, a cryptic mosaic that, if solved, might exonerate her. With trembling fingers, she reread every line and annotation, cross-referencing the dates and events mentioned in the book with what little she remembered of her own investigation. As she worked, her mind raced to connect the scattered clues to a coherent narrative that could reveal who had set her up and why. The hours slipped away unnoticed as Olivia delved deeper into the mystery, her isolation punctuated only by the distant sounds of prison life. Each page of Mercer's biography seemed to hold a secret, a fragment of the truth that had been deliberately buried to protect powerful interests. And as she deciphered the coded messages hidden in the margins, a growing realization took root. Her fate and Mercer's downfall were entwined in a far more complex conspiracy than she had ever imagined. By the time the dim light of evening crept into her cell, Olivia was no longer just a condemned prisoner. She had become a determined seeker of truth. The book was not merely a record of a fallen empire, but a gateway to uncovering the machinations that had led to her wrongful conviction. Every new revelation reinforced her resolve to fight back, to expose the secrets that had not only cost her freedom but nearly her life. Yet, even as hope began to kindle within her, the lurking questions remained unanswered. Who had orchestrated this elaborate frame-up? And what other hidden documents lay undiscovered in the shadows of Holloway? With the mysterious note and the secret message from the book as her only guides, Olivia realized that her journey had only just begun. In the silent, oppressive darkness of her cell, she vowed that she would not let her story end here. There was a truth waiting to be revealed, a truth that might one day clear her name and bring those responsible to justice. As night settled over the prison, Olivia curled up on her narrow bunk, the weight of her newfound knowledge mingling with an unwavering determination. She closed her eyes, imagining a future where the secrets of Mercer's empire were exposed and her innocence vindicated. But for now, she was left with a single, burning question. Who was behind the messages, and what dangerous truth lay waiting in the depths of Holloway? The mystery deepens as Olivia begins to piece together clues from the book, leaving her with more questions than answers. Who is orchestrating this grand deception, and what secrets remain hidden in the shadows of Holloway? The unveiling. Night had fallen over Holloway, its oppressive silence broken only by the occasional clatter echoing down the cold, concrete corridors. In her cell, Olivia Hartwell lay awake, the weight of the day's revelations pressing down on her. The secret messages, the hidden clues within Mercer's biography, and the undeniable evidence of a conspiracy that had ensnared her mind and freedom, all converged in her restless thoughts. She knew that tonight would be the turning point, the moment when everything would finally come to light. Summoning every bit of courage, Olivia sat up and retrieved the battered copy of Mercer's Empire. The Rise and Fall of a Titan, along with the folded note and the secret letter. The words, "The truth is buried, but not for long. Trust no one," flashed before her eyes as she pieced together the fragments of evidence. She recalled the hushed whispers of fellow inmates and the furtive glances that suggested many within Holloway harbored their own dangerous secrets. Her cellmate, Reina Vasquez, stirred in her sleep. For a moment, Olivia considered sharing her findings, but the betrayal that might lurk behind every alliance made her cautious. Instead, she resolved to act alone, at least until she could trust someone enough to share her plan. With determined resolve, she decided that the key to unraveling this labyrinth of deceit lay in confronting the prison's clandestine information network. Rumors had long swirled about a hidden archive maintained by a sympathetic librarian in the facility, a secret repository of documents and records that no guard was permitted to tamper with. Olivia waited until the early hours of the morning, when most of the prison was still enveloped in sleep, before slipping out of her cell. The corridors, dimly lit by flickering fluorescent lights, were nearly empty. Heart-pounding, she navigated the labyrinthine halls, guided by an internal map formed from weeks of careful observation. She reached the small library, a sanctuary of silent whispers and forgotten secrets, and knocked softly on a weathered door. Moments later, the door creaked open to reveal a gaunt, elderly librarian with kind but wary eyes. "Who's there?" the librarian whispered. "It's me, Olivia. I need your help," she replied in a hushed tone, clutching the book and the folded notes as if they were shields. The librarian's eyes narrowed slightly, but she stepped aside. "Follow me," she murmured, leading Olivia down a narrow staircase into a hidden room lined with filing cabinets and dusty records. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and secrets long kept. In the dim glow of a single desk lamp, the librarian gestured to a cluttered table. "You look for the truth, don't you?" Olivia nodded. "I need to prove I was framed. I found clues in this book. Please, help me access any records on Daniel Mercer's business dealings and any related corruption here." The librarian's hand trembled as she rifled through a stack of folders, pulling out a battered ledger and a series of confidential memos. These are documents that were hidden away, unlisted in any public record. Mercer was deeply involved in illicit financial schemes and, more importantly, his empire was built on the silence of those who dared to question him. "But there's more." She paused, lowering her voice. "I've seen your face before. You're not just any inmate. You were a journalist. I knew you from your columns. I'm sorry it came to this." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. I need to know who orchestrated my frame-up, who set me up to take the fall. There must be a connection between Mercer's secret dealings and my conviction. The librarian leaned in, her voice barely audible. There's a name that recurs in these documents, a name that should not be forgotten: Alexander Crane. He was once a trusted associate of Mercer, but his involvement in the Shadow Network extended far beyond that. Rumor has it he manipulated evidence and silenced voices to maintain a facade of legitimacy. Olivia's mind raced. Alexander Crane. It was a name that had appeared in whispers during her trial, dismissed as a rumor. Now it was coming to life in black and white on these fragile pages. Is there any record of his involvement in the case against me? The librarian hesitated. There's a confidential file, locked away in the administrative wing. It's highly restricted, but if you can find a way to access it, you might uncover the evidence you need to clear your name. Determination hardened Olivia's features. I will find that file. I'll expose everyone who was complicit in this frame-up, starting with Alexander Crane. Over the next few days, Olivia meticulously planned her next move. With careful precision, she used the scant resources at her disposal to send discreet messages to a trusted contact on the outside, a former colleague who had once championed her investigative work. Every whisper of information was weighed and measured, every scrap of evidence hidden in plain sight among the mundane routines of prison life. At night, while the prison slept, Olivia navigated the dark corridors, using the librarian's directions to slip into the administrative wing. The tension was palpable as she crept past patrolling guards, her heart pounding with each echo of her footsteps. In a locked cabinet behind a faded painting, she discovered the confidential file. Inside, detailed records revealed a web of deceit, transactions, forged documents, and covert communications linking Mercer's downfall to Alexander Crane's machinations. It became shockingly clear. Olivia had been sacrificed to shield powerful interests, a pawn in a much larger scheme to maintain control over a vast network of corruption. As Olivia absorbed the damning evidence, alarms suddenly blared through the corridor. Her pulse raced as she clutched the file tightly, heart hammering in her ears. Footsteps thundered towards her hiding spot. For a moment, time seemed to freeze as she weighed her options. With a burst of adrenaline, she slipped the file into her clothing and darted into a shadowy passageway, narrowly evading capture. The pursuit was frantic, but Olivia's determination lent her the strength to push forward despite the danger. Back in her cell, trembling yet triumphant, Olivia spread out the contents of the file and began piecing together the final puzzle. Every connection, every corrupted signature, now painted a damning picture of betrayal. Alexander Crane's name, alongside others, was etched in a conspiracy that reached the highest echelons of power. This was the evidence that could not only prove her innocence but also expose a scandal that would rock the foundations of the establishment. In that solitary moment of revelation, as she reviewed the records under the weak light of her cell, Olivia made a silent vow. She would not be broken by this system. She would fight back with the truth as her weapon, determined to reclaim her freedom and dignity, and to bring those who had wronged her to justice. With the file as her shield and a burning resolve in her heart, Olivia prepared to send the evidence out to her contact on the outside. In the quiet of the night, as she composed a carefully worded message detailing the conspiracy, she paused, realizing the enormity of what she was about to unleash. And then, with unwavering resolve, she hit send. As the dawn broke over Holloway, a new chapter was beginning. Not just for Olivia, but for a world about to wake up to the harsh truth of corruption and deceit. The wheels of justice were set in motion, and the conspiracies that had once silenced voices were now on the brink of collapse. Before we close this story, I want to thank you for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this gripping tale of betrayal, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of truth, please like, subscribe, and share this video so that you never miss another story. Your support helps uncover more hidden truths and keeps the spirit of justice alive.